Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to wherever you are in the world. Welcome to RCI TV on both Twitch and YouTube, and we're back for the Mini British GT Championship. Today marks round 5 of the championship, where the action continues back here in Britain with Snetterton Circuit, one of the UK's premier racing venues. Located in Norfolk, Snetterton is renowned for its blend of high-speed straights and technical corners, offering a unique challenge for our drivers. With the circuit originally an RAF airfield, also boasts a rich motorsport history and a layout that demands, of course, both precision and bravery. I'm John Dalton, your lead commentator for today's virtual racing action, with Callum Kerrigan alongside me and Jesse Lee bringing you all the pictures from behind the cameras, and of course not forgetting our live stewards. Welcome everyone.
Good evening, John. Good evening, Jesse, and good evening, everyone on YouTube and Twitch. Welcome to the tight and twisty circuit of Snetterton. If you enjoyed round one, thinking all the way back to round one at Alton Park, where we had that tight circuit, hard to overtake, well, you're in for a treat today, as we've got two 30-minute races, all governed by one qualifying session that you're watching right now. And on a circuit like Snetterton, it's safe to say these laps that these drivers are putting in right now are everything. Absolutely essential that they get a good qualifying time in here today to secure a good spot, as overtaking is going to be a challenge.
Yeah, absolutely. Of course, qualifying tonight being the standard 15-minute format. Of course, position is crucial, as you mentioned, Callum, with Snetterton leading itself to the kind of tight and, twisty. It's awkward to pass here. It does demand a lot of bravery to make the move stick, and it also demands, of course, cooperation from both drivers to make clean and safe racing happen. So it's going to be a bit of a challenge tonight. Of course, the one qualifying session governing both of the sprint races we have here tonight, two 30-minute races. So no mandatory pit stop like we've seen in previous events. Of course, it's going to be an intense nature of the sprint race. That means, of course, every second counts, and drivers must balance, of course, the aggression with precision to secure valuable championship points. And of course, we're going to see some fast times coming through already. Andy Boardman to the top with a 1:46.2. Les Stevenson throwing himself up towards the front row very quickly. Benjamin Heilman towards the provisional pole for the RCI Esports 796. The bar is already being set. McLaren and Ford looking very fast here. And we know the Mustang from previous British rounds was very good in a straight line, Callum. And of course, we've got the big, long straight, the Bentley straight between Williams and, of course, Brundle, where we're probably going to see the Mustang really catch up on the opponents.
Yeah, really catch up or just drive away. I think I didn't want to mention it this early, but the last thing I'd want to be as a driver in this race is behind one of those Mustangs. A little bit slower in the corners, and you know you've got more cornering speed, but the second you feel like you've got a better exit, that Mustang is just going to stretch its legs and gap you on every single straight. Again, just echoing how important this qualifying session is going to be. We've got Martin Ulrich in the Aston Martin on a quali lap here, following, I believe, Ibiza Racer. And just noting some things about this track optimization is absolutely key. And you can see here from Ulrich using every inch of the circuit, dipping some wheels into the grass here, because that's how you're going to gain your lap time. Being brave, what you mentioned earlier, John, is exactly what you need. Bravery is absolutely key, and a lot of these corners, getting early on the exit, or getting as early on the throttle as you can, as a lot of these exits are blind, and just trusting that your car is going to end up on the right piece of racetrack, especially in this qualifying session, is what you're hoping for.
Yeah, of course, it's quite long runs, like you say, kind of between the corners. Of course, the Bentley Straight being one of them. Of course, the Senna Straight, where Andy Boardman is at the moment, up coming out of the last corner, although lost a lot of time. He'll net himself towards the provisional front row of the grid, immediately bested by Benjamin Heilman, and the laps coming thick and fast here. Carlos Calatayud throwing himself up into the top as well. And this man here, Tom Shipston, as he exits from the last corner of Murray's. Just under 10 minutes to go on the clock. We see Ted Edwards there on the left-hand side of the screen rejoining. He's going to have to find a place in this queue to get that Mustang underway. Tom Shipston, small improvement up into P8, just inside the top 10. We've so far got 8 cars governed by just over a second, so some drivers gelling with the circuit, some not. Richard Phillips for RPMS SimSport there, fantastic lap up into P10. That's a good gain all the way from P16 on that one, and back to the pit lane he'll go. New set of boots on that car, slightly reduced fuel load, and back out he will go to see if he can better himself on his next lap. Ammo Plate, meanwhile, firing the Lamborghini towards the front end of the grid, the number 71 P4 for the Iron Lynx driver. That's a very, very good lap, Callum, and certainly a car that I would be fearing if I was in the Fords and the McLarens.
A brilliant lap there from Imo Plata in the Lamborghini. We spoke that there was going to be a Ford versus McLaren battle here, but already in the top floor we've got 4 different constructors. This is looking like it's going to be a little bit spicy. We've got Bruno Teixeira Oh, no longer Bruno Teixeira on our screen, but he's supporting the GTR a little bit back down in the field as we ride on board with Christoph Verstappen coming down the center straight. Is he going to improve on his time? And he does by 2/10, gapping Benjamin Harmon by almost 5/10 of a second. The Aston is absolutely flying today, John.
Yeah, Christoph there cementing himself to the front row of the grid. Back to the pit lane, we'll see the top three go. Andy Boardman, Benjamin Harmon and Christoph Verstappen. A late lap there from Philip Brewster puts him provisionally on the front row in the number 25 RCI Esports BMW. He looks like he's going for another lap, of course, with him. Carlos Calatayud maybe trying to learn a thing or two. Tom Shipston, meanwhile, 2 positions up. Good improvement there, and I think I've just seen Chris van der Linde improve ever so slightly behind as well in the Mustang into P17 overall. Tom Shipston will pull off. He'll take a fresh set of boots along with Matt Stevens, I think that was as well, in the number 100 Mercedes. Les Stevenson also back to the lane very quickly indeed, just under 7 minutes to go. And Marco Badowski, this isn't usually where we see the Team Monkey Racing driver, of course, the number 29, all the way down in P25 at the moment. The Raging Bull firing on all cylinders towards the line. He'll go. Will it be an improvement this time? And it is, all the way from P25 up into P7. That's where we're used to seeing Marco Badowski.
Yeah, and that's going to be a big weight off his chest. Not getting a lap that's really representative of his pace, but getting one on the board. A big sigh of relief there as he's relieved himself of pressure. A little bit of a banker lap, and now he's going to be chasing the fastest times as we're on board with Philip Brewster, just almost 3/10 behind of Christopher Verstappen. It looks like he just lost it there out of Nelson corner coming round. What's that? Sorry, that was probably a bomb hole. I'm already losing my place on the track, so he's lost some momentum there. But will he be gaining as he comes round into Murray? Such a key braking zone and exit point, and it looks like he's lost a lot of pace as we can see the Ferrari just chasing him down, getting a bit of slipstream into the centre.
Yeah, so just behind there, of course, Carlos Calatayud. He puts himself up into P3 on the grid. Philip Brewster, no improvement there. Lost a lot of time in that final sector. Carlos back to the pit lane. Just over 5 minutes remain of the qualifying session. Just under 2 minutes a lap. So, of course, with the outlap, maybe 2 laps at most for the drivers pitting at the moment. Tom Shipston very wisely yields to a charging Marco Badowski as he comes through the final sector of the circuit, of course, through Bombhole. Very brave corner there, all the way around Coram. It's a very long right-hander. Feels like it goes on for absolutely ever until you stand on the brakes for Murray's. Get the apex nice and tight. Get a good run, of course. Be careful of the track limits on the exit. Very easily overstepped here as you're pushing for that ultimate fast lap. And Marco Badowski for Team Monkey Racing to the line. He goes up into P6. It's a good improvement there. Fires himself ahead of MO Plate in the number 71 Lamborghini. And from one Lamborghini to another, this time Richard Phillips. We saw him in the pit lane a few moments ago, grabbing a new set of tyres, reducing the fuel load down, and back out he goes. And a slight tow maybe ahead from the GTR of Bruno Teixeira as they come out the last corner. Teixeira pulls off into the pit lane. A little bit of pit entry practice for the GTR there. That's a wise thing to do. And Richard Phillips up 5 positions, just inside your top 10, behind his teammate as well of Matt Stevens. So another crucial thing to note there, those guys could be maybe working together in the sprint race, Callum.
They could be working together. We've seen a lot of teamwork of the Randy Please More Soup cars. There we go. I've got it in early. This time we've got Flip Register coming across. That's a 1/10 improvement, chasing down that time of Christoph Verstappen. This is, I mean, looking at the leaderboard here, John, we've got 6 cars, top 6, all at different constructors. Then we've got another Lambo, then a Bentley, then a Mercedes, then another Lambo, and then we repeat again at the McLaren. This is a lot tighter than I think we expected, and with it being this close across 230 minutes, this one could get a little bit spicy. We've got Benjamin Holman. I think he may have just invalidated on the exit there, just pushing too hard into Murray's. Such a difficult corner to get right because you're coming around corner. You've got to almost drag yourself out to the left, then sharply angle yourself to the right to get straight line braking. Reel that off, carry as much speed as you can, but not enough that you go over the exit as you saw Harmon do there. Such a difficult corner to get right, but so vital and pivotal to your lap time.
Yeah, of course, as we watch Martin Ulrich here again, another driver slightly out of contention on where we expect him to, of course, finish. Normally, Ulrich inside the top 10, currently in P16. He's going to be seeking an improvement there. As Trevor Byford, a small improvement for himself. Over the line he goes. Grim Lilith to follow next in the Audi R8. Of course, Kaiju Racing, powered by the Rally 2.0, a very aptly themed livery running on both Grim Lilith's car and Aaron Jackson's car for this season. And it is, of course, promoting the new Dirt Rally 2.0 championships that we are beginning to run here at RCI. So, of course, the EA Sports WRC clubs wasn't as fully fleshed out as we'd like to have thought. And, of course, we are taking a step back into the realm of Dirt Rally 2.0. Still some fantastic stages and content within that game as well. And the Game of the Year edition can be picked up quite cheaply among other retailers, and of course in the Steam sale when that's on as well. Just missed out on that one if you did want to get involved. But of course, head on over to the Discord, have a look through the rally channels, and you'll see all the relevant things that you need to get involved. And of course, we'll mention it later on in the broadcast as well. But Grim Lilith currently P17 in the Audi, teammate just behind Aaron Jackson, P18. So those guys, of course, very close on pace overall, and just behind Martin Ulrich as well. Ted Edwards breathing down their neck with Theobald Roskam. So even down the back end of the field, Callum, as well as the top end looking very competitive, even the back end also looking competitive, as Les Stevenson there makes up 2 positions in the Roker Poker Racing McLaren number 46.
Yeah, it's looking like a very tight race, and everyone eager to get those laps in for these 2:30 minutes, pushing to their heart's content as we ride back on board with Grim Lilith. Will he get the braking right into Murray's? Carries as much speed as he can, doesn't run wide onto the exit, and this looks like this could be a small improvement for Grim Lilith as he comes across, bringing that Lamborghini up any spots. And he just gains 1 into P16. The Audi's maybe not seeming too happy on this circuit, maybe not very favoured, as it looks like with the clock ticking 44 seconds to go, looks like these are going to be the last laps for everyone, the last efforts to try and get themselves further up the field to secure a good starting spot for race 1 and race 2.
Yeah, of course, we've got a couple of cars coming across the line. The 808 to name one, the number 420, followed by the number 8, yet to start another flying lap. So this is going to be their last-ditch effort for any late improvements. Meanwhile, Benjamin Harmon for the RCI Esports crew, the 796, coming, of course, through the tricky chicane of Brundle and Nelson. It's a very fast entry into Brundle, and then you've got to scrub lots of speed off to get it turned in for Nelson. Again, a typical pinch point we see on lap 1, where cars tend to concertina in, some drivers being a little bit more cautious than others, trying to make up early grounds. But Benjamin Harmon through Coram, through Murray's, he will go a little bit wide there. Not sure if that was potentially track limits, but running to the line now, the 796 shortens it all the way, hugs the pit wall, has to avoid a car that stops on before the line, and it is an improvement from Benjamin Harmon, but not enough to take the pole position. Andy Boardman, meanwhile, in the background, bats Harmon back down a position. He takes provisional P4 away in the number 69 Greased Weasel Racing, and lots of cars already on the pit apron, taking no further part in the session. Tom Shipston for the RPMS SimSport car comes across the line. An improvement there, but not enough for a position, but again, just behind Matt Stevens. So RPMS SimSport still in a line, albeit Richard Phillips slightly ahead up the road now into P8. Grim Lilith, the last lap for them. Good improvement there up into P15, and Kevin Boss in the background. He will seek no improvement on his lap. Matt Stevens comes through net P11 as well. Richard Phillips doesn't move on his lap. Regardless, still a few more cars coming through to complete their lap. Kenneth Dow, of course, being one of them. The 808 of Martin Lawrence, I believe, just ahead as well. He's going to be seeking a slight... No, not Martin Lawrence in the 808. I beg your pardon. That's actually Ibiza Racer, sorry, in the BMW. They come across the line P26. Kenneth Dow, yet to set a lap, does set one in a last-ditch effort up into P29, just behind Gallower and ahead of Whittle. Ted Edwards, P19 in the foreshot, and the last car across the line, Aaron Jackson, P18. So the Audis no longer bunched together on that one, and final results coming up on your screens right now. So Christopher Schrappen will take the pole, lockout, of course, with Philip Register on the front row. Carlos Calatayud, followed by Andy Boardman, Benjamin Harmon, Emo Plate, Badowski, Phillips, Lawrence, and Stevenson round out your top 10. And like you said, Callum, plenty of manufacturers inside that top 10. Again, Ford's struggling a little bit. We've got Van der Linde and Boss down the bottom end of the field, followed by some McLarens of Redford, Ryhead, and Foster. So lots of manufacturers bunched together, but Lamborghinis, all of them inside that top 10. Very crucial, and it looks like it could be a strong car for today's race.
Yeah, it looks like those Lamborghinis just wanted to stick together and bully the rest of the cars out the way as they tried to make their way through the field. But you're absolutely right. A very good mix of I'm losing my wording completely, John. A very good mix of manufacturers in there, and on a track where overtaking isn't something we'd expect too much of. You've really got to force the move, force your opponent, be it chasing or defending, into a mistake to try and get a bit of time on them. And using your car's natural advantages that you have on the car in front of you is going to be absolutely key. So for a McLaren, they're going to use that mid-corner speed to get right up the back end of who they're chasing. But for a Mustang, they're going to try and hold the position till they get on the straights. And I think that's going to be something we're going to see a lot in this race, is people using their car's advantages to suit them and try to force their moves where on a track where they might not naturally come to them.
Yeah, of course, Snetterton, very hard for overtaking. We're going to probably see lots of pack racing, similar to what we saw last time out at, of course, Alton Park, with the trains forming and drivers really shoehorning the door open. Of course, the interlude between qualifying and the race is always the time we run through the championship standings. And fingers crossed, Jesse Lee has them queued, and he does right on the queue here. Andy Boardman at the top of the board so far, 165 points to his name. Chasing Philip Brewster and Christopher Streppen on 159.5 and 152 points on that one. Benjamin Harmon, 148.5. Tom Shipston, 10 behind on 138.5. Yao Manzo not here with us tonight, unfortunately, on 130. Carlos Calatayud on 125. Keep an eye out for him. He's starting on the second row of the grid in P3. Marco Badowski, of course, in one of the many Lamborghinis inside that top 10. Keep your eye for him on 111. Grim Lilith on 110.5. And Martin Lawrence rounds out your top 10 on 105 points. Now, it's a very long championship board here as we get on to the second page with Emo Plate on 96, Martin Ulrich on 86, Ted Edwards on 80.5, Matt Stevens on 71.5, Nicholas Keller on 62.5, and Richard Phillips on 59. Bruno Teixeira, the first of your GTRs in the standings, on 55 points, just ahead of Mike Redford with 52, tied with Theobald Roskam. So those two guys going to be duking it out today. I believe they're starting in similar positions on the board. Roskam P20, Redford P23. So that one could be very interesting indeed. And Stephen Van Kampen rounds out your top 20 on 45 points. Now, Kenneth Dow on 41, tied with Nicholas Galloway. I believe, again, they're similar ends of the grid, so that could be a very nice fight we witness indeed. Nicole Fox on 40, Richard Withall on 37, Kevin Boss on 33.5, Ibiza Racer on 30, Martin Foster on 29.5, Mikey Turner on 20, Les Stevenson, of course, absent most of the season, on 19 points, and our very own Aaron Jackson on 15 points. Rounds out your top 30. And of course, the pages keep rolling. Philip Reha, a late sign up to the season, on 14 points. Chris van der Linde on 9. Trevor Byford on 4. Marco Facuccio on 2. John Aracer, Keith Withall, Jakub Wisniewski, all on 0 points yet to score. And of course, anybody else with a dash against their name will take no further part in the championship, including you, Callum Kerrigan, of course, in P39 there, joining us up here in the comms box rather than down on the circuit. And I think it's over 50 signups we've actually had for this championship. Here we go. 58 drivers and some names there that, of course, we recognize very much on Mondays. And if you do want to get involved with us here at RCI, you can, of course, do so by heading on over to the website. That's racerci.com. Of course, you can find all of our events anytime, day or night. And if you do want to take part in an event, the signups have just opened, of course, for the Nürburgring Nordschleife 6 hours. That's part 2. Of course, we did host one earlier on this year. GT3, GT4, and TCX class will take to the circuit for 6 hours of multi-class madness. Teams will be between 1 and 4 drivers, with practice and qualifying held in a separate server, with no stint timer to also open up the strategy. Featuring both BOP for GT3 and GT4, this should bring the field that little bit closer together. Signups have been filling up quite fast, so if you want to get your team registered to at least reserve a slot, then please do so sooner rather than later. That, of course, takes place on August 3rd here at RCI. And, of course, the calendar this week a little bit quieter, with Saturday being the next event. That's Saturday Night Owl, heading to round 5 down under at Mount Panorama. Last time out was Zolder. It was E-Tron de Jong with a commanding lead over Joe Dorber and Grim Lilith in Pro. And in Silver, it was Alan Asprey from Kevin Boss and Adnan Pazina. De Jong still leading Dorber from Lilith in Pro. And down in Silver, it's Asprey leading my colleague Callum Kerrigan from Adnan Pazina. And we've got an interesting thing here. Raiha has decided to start from the pit lane. Whether out of choice here, Callum, maybe thinking the typical kind of checkup going down into the Montreal hairpin will happen. Maybe playing it a little bit safer in the sprint race. Going to see what he can take from other people's misery potentially on the opening lap, or maybe just simply forgetting to click the drive button, as has been the victim. And also Carlos Calatayud, I've just noticed, tumbling down the order, also with a P next to his name. Maybe another driver forgetting to click start, Callum, or again a tactical decision.
He wasn't in the pit lane as we started the lap. I do think that's something that's happened as the laps progressed, whether he was too far away from where the game wants you to be. Either way, I'm absolutely gutted for Carlos Calatayud after an incredible lap to stick him on the second row in P3. If that's I mean, it could be a hardware issue, it could be him timing out. Either way, he's going to be absolutely gutted from that. But we know he's got the pace, we know he can make the move up the field, and he's definitely going to be one to watch for this one. Well called out on the events. John, there's one thing I wanted to get a little bit of an opinion on from the chat today, and that was me and Les Stevenson will be racing the TCX, and we can't come up with a team name. So anyone in the YouTube and Twitch chat, if you have any team names for me and Les in the TCX for the 6 hour, we will run the best team name. So get your suggestions in.
Remember, maybe a little bit safer work, but that could be opening yourself up to a little bit of danger there.
I'm ready,
yeah,
I'm ready.
Of course, anybody in the chat that thinks of a name, please do mention it, and Callum will take a note and discuss with Callum. Of course, a big thank you to you guys at home, of course, making this possible and being with us here across the journey at RTI TV, and we thank each and every single one of you for joining us, whether you're lurking, you know, you've been here from the beginning, or you're just recently finding us through your recommendation box. Welcome to Racing Club International, and this is what we enjoy doing. Here we go then, cars 2x2 as we come out of the final turn. Of course, Murray's running up now. We've got Andy Boardman and Benjamin Holman. They're going to be locked together. Remember the feud they had at Alton Park that turned sour in race 2 again. That was another sprint race, and just look at the spectacle of cars that we have coming down the Stenner Straight. Waiting for, of course, the lights to go green. Christopher Streppen to the left, Philip Brechster to the right, Andy Boardman behind, and Benjamin Harmon tucked in as well as we get underway. It looks like a great launch from Brechster, already cutting across the front of the Aston Martin. Andy Boardman has managed to clear Benjamin Harmon. Ammo Plate looks like he's closing up on Harmon as well, and there's already a hip and shoulder check. That's Lawrence on Phillips. Phillips over the bump, does well to hold it on. Meanwhile, Tom Shipston tries the outside line of the Montreal hairpin. Around the outside he goes with Les Stevenson there, and we're already 2 to 3 wide nearly in the back of the pack. Kevin Boss and Mike Redford going toe to toe as they come out of the Montreal hairpin down to Oggies. Of course, the long run out of Oggies makes it a good corner to try and set yourselves up for Agostini, of course, at the bottom end of the straight, although be very careful because this is the next pinch point of the circuit, the last of the late breakers. There's avoiding action there from Redford. We're 3 wide through Agostini. Ibiza Racer in the background there, front row seats to the fight that is going on ahead, and Mike Redford there being the loser from that fight. Kevin Boss up into P21. He sets his sights on the back of Van der Linde. Got a few yellow flags being thrown, one for the 44 and another for the 777. I think the 73 of Nicholas Galloway there involved in an incident as well, and the 44 of Foster, as we see Raiha steam through there in the 777 after their pit lane start, already capitalizing on some first lap victims. The number 30, I think Carlos Calatayud has stopped at the outside of Palmer. He is disconnected from the server and will take no further part. That's such a shame after a great qualifying session, but already the lead four have begun to break away, with Breitster at the front, Verstappen behind, Andy Boardman in P3, and Benjamin Harman finds himself staring once again at the back of the number 69 Greased Weasel Racing Mustang as we complete the first lap. Callum, I'd say relatively clean, but 3 cars slightly out of position at the back. Of course, one of them from a pit lane start. So, I mean, touch wood, relatively speaking, that was a fairly clean start for Snetterton.
That was a very clean start as we see Verstappen and Holman running wide into T1. Verstappen gets back on the track, but Holman losing all the control of the car and into the Montreal hairpin. He's going to have to do quite a lot of waiting in order to join that safely. Big drama for the top 4. He, well, probably wasn't looking forward to looking at the rear of that GT3 of Andy Boardman again for a race, and now he's got the claw back. He's got to fight through the field here, where we know it is difficult to overtake as we ride on board with the race replay. This is Benjamin Harman again, just spinning there. Dirty tyres going off onto the grass and rejoining, and then probably going onto the marbles, just not quite having the control as he's trying to recover back into the car. Yeah, shout out to the camera there. He doesn't know who to follow in this situation. But yeah, John, it was a relatively clean start and then fell apart a little bit there on lap 2. Philip Breschke, a great launch off that green flag and immediately cut across Christopher Verstappen. Went, yep, I will have that position. Thank you very much. I did have a little bit of a look on Calatayud. It seemed like he went off at T1 as we ride on board here with Les Stevenson currently.
They just captured a few race replays here. Galloway and Foster, I believe, on that one, being told in our ears. My preview window's a little bit messed up here, but back we go with Galloway and another race replay here with Grim Lilith. I think this is Tom Shipston possibly alongside in the Ferrari. There's a tiny bit of a touch. I mean, it's not much, but again, it's something through Williams to hamper your exit speed. And of course, down the Bentley straight they go. It looks like Grim Lilith pulled off to the left-hand side, possibly letting Whittle through. That's Jackson going through, and maybe some more contact here with another race replay. They're all avoiding action there. Nearly tipped the Audi over on the sausage curb. Gets in the way of Bruno Teixeira. That's Martin Ulrich cutting between the two as well, and that's why Grim Lilith was so slow down the centre straight. A very poor exit through Murray's and great avoiding action there. I'm not sure if there was contact made in the end, but nevertheless managed to keep the Audi on the straight and narrow and facing the right way, crucially, as the train is beginning to form. Callum, everybody line of stern down into Agostini. Some gaps a little bit bigger than others as they run, of course, towards Hamilton. Teixeira essentially at the head, fending off Martin Ulrich, Tom Shipston and Richard Whittle here. Grim Lilith just, of course, in the back of the shot, followed with Aaron Jackson, Ted Edwards, see about Roscam and Van der Linde all bunched together. So this is going to get very interesting. 5 minutes of the race just under have gone. Of course, the race leaders beginning to break away. Breitster 1.6 seconds to the good from Verstappen. Andy Boardman still tight with Verstappen, just under half a second there. Marco Badowski, we did say to keep an eye on him. He's all the way up into P4 now in the number 29 Team Monkey Racing entry. Martin Lawrence, a good game off the line as well, and Emo Plate just outside the top 5. So everybody relatively condensed, given the scenarios that of course happened at the front of the field, but everybody is going to be itching to try and get some progress done. And Andy Boardman nets himself the fastest lap of the race as he comes across the line to 146.167, of course benefiting massively from the Mustang grunt and of course the tow being given from Verstappen. And Andy Boardman right now going to be sizing up Christoph, seeing where he's a little bit weaker, where the Mustang seems to be that little bit stronger, and just seeing if a move could be on the cards in 20 minutes or so as we get towards the checkered flag.
Yeah, but Andy Boardman on an absolute charge right now in that Mustang as we ride on board with Mike Redford going into Palmer as we see this. Oh, we go riding on board straight with a race replay actually. We've got, is this a move from Mike Redford around the outside of the Mustang or the inside of the Mustang? Lovely move there from Mike Redford to get that done. Kevin Boss trying to get a little bit involved there as well.
Yeah, so he's having some technical difficulties here with the preview window on my end. Just trying to flick through what is going on. I think John Eraster, actually, we haven't touched on him too much. He's up inside the top 10 as well in the 6.99. Again, another late sign up to the Monday Championship. So a good run so far from the McLaren drivers. We see the Battle of the Mustangs here. This is Kevin Boss, Chris van der Linde and Ibiza Racer still with a front row seat to somebody else's fight. And again, it's good to see, of course, the BMW getting it mixed in as John Racer currently on your screens. Of course, Matt Stevens just ahead in the number 100 RPMS car. Of course, ahead of him, he's got plates. So everybody running in relatively kind of clean air at the moment. So it's going to be a crucial time to essentially turn this next 10 minutes or so into a real hot lap session to try and, you know, either break away from the guy behind or certainly catch up to the guy ahead. And of course, Benjamin Harmon on a recovery drive. And if a man can do a recovery drive, it's certainly going to be Benjamin Harmon. Just look at the train ahead of him, Callum. He's got some names to contend with. He's got Richard Phillips, Kevin Boss, Mike Redford, about Ross Cam, Ted Edwards, Tom Shipston, to name a few. Oh, and Boss, I think that's Kevin Boss, is round. Not sure what happened there. Maybe a coming together with van der Linde. Richard Phillips has got involved as well. Back to the pit lane for the RPMS Lamborghini, taking no further part in race one. Let's have a look what happened. Kevin Boss into turn one, bumped from behind by Ibiza Racer, and Richard Phillips was just caught in the crossfire trying to take avoiding action. It's that classic move, isn't it, where you see on, you know, the posts on Reddit saying, would you go left or right? And of course you have to make that split decision. Richard Phillips went to the inside, unfortunately just wasn't the right call, but again, round the outside would have been very hard to scrub speed off to avoid Kevin Boss parked in the middle of the circuit. So Richard Phillips back to the pit lane. He'll take no further part in today's race one. Of course, race two is coming up, so again, Phillips is certainly going to be sticking around, ready for that one, to see if he can flip it on its head ever so slightly and certainly get it back going again. Tom Shipston finds himself sandwiched between, of course, Teixeira and Whittle in this kind of mid-pack region just outside the top 10. Martin Ulrich, of course, just ahead now of Teixeira. That move's happened in the last couple of laps also. Les Stevenson also ahead, fending off Martin Ulrich, who's on a bit of a charge at the moment, and they've got some 2 seconds or so before they catch the back of John Eraser. So again, it's another thing, isn't it, Callum? Do you work with the guy ahead of you, or do you try and fight him to improve your position and try and break free of him? But then working together, of course, you could net so much more by essentially pushing each other around the lap to catch the next guy in the train.
I'd say it's a weird one. I think if I was in this race, I'd be trying to make as many moves as possible. You know, we're drastically running out of time with 20 minutes to go. If you're trying to utilize and follow through someone, I think the benefits of that really sits with an undercut or an overcut, and, you know, utilizing the pit stop there. But in a sprint race, it's all about getting these moves, these opportunistic moves where you can. I mean, we're riding on board with Whittle right now. He's got Shipston ahead of him. Equal machinery, equal cars. There's not really much opportunity to use the difference in the car there, as we see Teixeira in the distance there going wide, and Shipston just trying to dip his nose in on the exit, try to displace the line and maybe see something through as you go through Hamilton, but nothing coming of it. I think in these sort of, I mean, we can't say DRS trains, obviously we don't have DRS in these cars, but these sort of slipstream trains that we have, it's even more difficult to pass, and we're seeing that right now. Not many moves happening up and down the field, but we have seen a little bit of drama. Very unfortunate for Richard Phillips. Obviously went off in lap one as well, had the incident there and has returned to the pits, called it a day for his race. Looking for, again, to just, obviously we have to repeat ourselves. The qualifying does set the grid for race 2 as well, and he had that immense qualifying lap, so he will start back further up the field for race 2 and hopefully recuperate some points from there.
Yeah, maybe a bit of a mental reset going on right now for Richard Phillips, of course, just getting away from the sim, having 5-10 minutes to cool down, cool off, rethink, of course, what's going into race 2, and of course, fingers crossed, it goes a little bit better for the RPMS Lamborghini next time out. Meanwhile, Martin Ulrich, though, being pressured by Bruno Teixeira. That's something I didn't think I would be saying in a broadcast at the moment, but Teixeira runs a little bit wide. He's going to lose time. That's going to open the door to Shipston. He's having a look down into the Montreal hairpin. No move to be had there, but Shipston has to be careful because, of course, behind he's got Whittle. So one mistake from Shipston, that could see Whittle up an extra position. And, of course, with him brings Grim Lilith very closely indeed, tucked behind the number 957 Ferrari. And, of course, just behind his teammate, Aaron Jackson, could be acting as a rear gunner in about 10 minutes time or so, as the camera's very much doing Jesse Lee dirty here as it flips to behind the scenery, but then to bring in a fantastic shot coming through Hamilton for Aaron Jackson. He's run wide off the circuit, comes back on. No weird bounce for the Audi R8 there, keeping it very settled over the grass, and gets back on, although losing time, of course, to Ted Edwards, and with him Theobald Roskam just behind as well. And with them brings Mike Redford in the number 95 MYK racing car. So again, trains are beginning to form, aren't they? Gaps are beginning to open for battles, and things are beginning to condense ever so slightly. But what is opening up is, of course, the lead for Philip Brewster out front in the number 25 BMW. Just look at the gap he's pulled out to Christoph Verstappen, 3.5 seconds through the last timing gate. Of course, Andy Bourbon still very much with the 747 in the number 69 Greased Weasel racing car behind, and again the gap has opened up ever so slightly in the last sector between Verstappen and Brewster. Badowski 3 seconds down. He brings with him Lawrence, who brings with him Emo Plate, and this time we see a move maybe for John Aracer. Look to the inside in the 699 Racing McLaren on Matt Stevens ahead, but turn one, very scary corner to go side by side, and it takes two to tango certainly around that corner. No move to be had at the Montreal hairpin, so John Aracer probably now sizing up Stevens, seeing where again he's weaker, where he can exploit that Mercedes. And Mercedes typically very good on the brakes, of course, with the anti-dive technology that the Evo variant of that car has, although it looks like Aracer has a little bit of a better run out of Palmer down into Agostini, thinks about it, although again last of the late breakers. We know the Mercedes is good on the brakes. McLaren typically very good through the corners, and of course the grunt of the Mercedes normally pulls it out ever so slightly ahead as they come through Hamilton, of course, Oggies and Williams the next corner before they begin the run onto the Bentley straight. I'd say Aracer would have been closer, although maybe a small mistake in that middle sector has certainly opened up the gap. I don't think that gap will be closed by the time they get through to Brundle, so line of stern for those boys. The race replay here, this time Galloway and Boss, and possibly Reiher involved. Reiher catches the back of Boss and catches Galloway. We have a strike down into the Montreal hairpin, Callum.
A strike indeed. Not a high score though, just 2 cars this time, but that was very unfortunate. It did seem he just missed his braking point. You were talking about how good the brakes are on the Mercedes. Myself, as a lover of the McLaren, could attest to how poor the McLaren's brakes feel sometimes, and I think he just fell victim to that. Tried to brake at the same time as the Mustang and fell a victim of those poor brakes. We see Martin trying to go around the outside of turn one. What a move, and great driving there from both himself and Badowski to have the trust in each other. That is such a tight line. As we ride straight on board with the race replay, the Bentley with just so much more grunt and power than that Lambo. Maybe he had a poor exit. Broke roughly at the same time, but just that mid-corner speed from the Bentley just drove round the outside almost like he wasn't there. Badowski just overslowed and then immediately had to go defensive for Emo Plata. Great racing from these guys. And now we've got Lawrence. He's going to be defending from the Lambos, or potentially running to go chase this Christopher Stroper and Andy Boardman fight.
Yeah, 4.6 seconds up the road. We'll see Andy Boardman and Lawrence coming together. That's quite a way away yet, as we're just under the halfway mark. Race replay with Ted Edwards and possibly Theobald Roskam. A little bit of a rub maybe out of the Montreal hairpin, but certainly been flagged up on our tool for the broadcast. So able to bring you race replays as they happen, essentially in real time. We do, of course, have live stewards with us here tonight, although their box is very empty in terms of comments from race 1 at the moment. So we'll keep our eyes peeled in there, and fingers crossed we can bring you all the updates as they occur. Although it's been a pretty relatively calm race, Callum. There's been no real major incident other than the Reiher one we just witnessed into the Montreal hairpin. Of course, Kevin Boss getting a small touch as well. So again, it could be the majority of racing incidents. Meanwhile, Martin Ulrich has latched onto the back of the Roker Poker Racing number 46, Les Stevenson, just ahead here, going to be using the toe of the McLaren all the way down the straight. Will we see a similar move here to what we just seen with Lawrence around the outside? I'm not sure Les would allow that. He takes the normal racing line. Ulrich sniffs to the inside, tries to take that little bit of a tighter line, gets a better run through turn one and darts out to the inside for the Montreal hairpin. The last of the late breakers. Can Les get the McLaren drawn up? He can. Ulrich tucks in behind, and we're line of stern again for another lap between these two. But in the background, of course, Teixeira will bring Shipston and Whittle into the fight if these two delay each other too much. And of course, just ahead, John Aracer and Matt Stevens. So again, can these two work together to try and progress their way up, or will Les find himself driving in the mirrors? I mean, Callum, you know Les probably better than I do, as we saw a brief yellow flag there for Reiher, I believe, out of the last turn. He's back to the pit lane. Let's just catch a race replay here coming down into the last corner. That's Reiher Galloway again. That's the second touch between the two, and Stewart's probably not going to be taking too favorably to that one, and Reiher straight back to the pit lane on that one. So we'll have to keep an eye on the stewards chat for the results of that incident. But you know Les better than me, Callum. Is he likely to be driving in the mirrors, or is Les going to be focusing out that windscreen trying to hunt down John Aracer just ahead?
Now, Les is forever the hungry driver. He will be sceptical and a bit cautious of this Aston behind him, but I know Les, he will be looking forward and hunting down John Aracer, trying to get the position of fastest McLaren in this race one. He'll be hunting him down, a little bit cautious through the straights, maybe with the grunt of that Aston, but he just knows all he needs to do is make the end of the straight, hit his braking points, and he will stay ahead. On that previous lap, it looked like Ulrich did spook him a little bit. Les ran a little bit wide, which gave Ulrich the line into turn two, but Les held it off very cleanly. And a very similar thing happened off of Palmer and into Agostini as well, where Ulrich just came right up behind him there, but Les had it covered. And I can, yeah, as you say, I race with Les a lot. Again, anyone in the YouTube and Twitch chat want to name our team for the 6 hour, please go ahead. He will be looking forward. He wants to become top McLaren in this race.
Yeah, absolutely so there, Callum. Of course, any team name suggestions for the Nordschleife 2.0 6 hour, of course, that we're doing here at RCI, fire them in the chat or in the Discord. And Callum will review them, as it looked a bit close there between Badowski and Lawrence going into, I think that was Williams. Oh no, it was Oggy, sorry, before Williams, and then of course we come out onto Williams, onto the Bentley straight. Let's catch a race replay. It's a little bit too late on capturing it, but Badowski very much nearly into the back of the Bentley there, and of course both drivers line of stern, making the most of the slipstream down towards Brundle and Nelson. Of course, it's a very tricky passing place here. It does take real commitment to set the car up for a move, and of course Emo Plate just in the background in the number 71 is going to have front row seats to this unfolding, and fingers crossed, not going to be hindered too much. Meanwhile, on the fight back, Benjamin Harman is up into P17. Last time we checked in, P23, I believe it was on the cards for the German driver. So progressing forward ever so much, and just over 10 minutes on the clock now sets his sights on to Ted Edwards in the number 8 Ford Mustang just ahead, of course. Then there's a little bit of a gap to Aaron Jackson on that one, but I imagine a lot of drivers down this end of the field, Callum, they're going to see a driver like Benjamin Harman charging into their rearview mirror, and they're probably not going to be too phased, of course, if he does get past. Again, Benjamin Harman isn't really fighting many people down in, outside the top 10 for championship points, and again, every position matters, of course, in the championship fight, as Tom Shipston is getting very close to the back of Teixeira's GTR through the Montreal hairpin. GTR may be failing a little bit on its tyres in this latter stage of the sprint race. But back to my original point, I don't think many drivers are sensibly going to be taking a fight to Benjamin Harman. Of course, if the pace difference is that drastic, especially in a sprint race, you're better off almost yielding, aren't you? Giving him the position, maybe using him a little bit to try and tow yourself forward, and then, of course, just kind of giving up, as we see an indicator there from Ted Edwards as he but gives up the position, as we were saying, through Agostini. Benjamin Harman now up into P16, sets his sights on to Aaron Jackson, and I think I'd be one of those drivers seeing Benjamin Harman charging in my mirrors. I don't want a part of that comeback. He can have it. I've given up, Callum.
I would tend to definitely agree with you with that, John. Whenever I see a faster driver coming up behind me, I do exactly what Ted did there. flash the indicator, show him where I want to go, and let him through with as little time loss as possible. But that's what I would do on a 1 hour race or a 2 hour, 3 hour race, a little bit of a longer race where I've got more time. In a sprint race, I think the mentality may be a little bit different. Ted Edwards obviously went for the option of letting Harman through there, but every second, every minute of this race counts towards your end result. So I think in the sprint races, people may be more inclined to really try to fight for every position, even if it is a driver like Benjamin Harman flying through the field.
Yeah, it does, of course. You know, lots of drivers want every championship point that they can get. So, I mean, even yielding to Benjamin Harman, if you reckon in the late stages you can fend him off for a lap or so, then certainly give it a go. As Tom Shipston sniffing the back of Bruno Teixeira's GTR through the Montreal hairpin. That GTR does not look happy through the slower speed corners. And I guess the top end of that thing is keeping it alive in the fight with Tom Shipston currently, as of course we ride on board from the rear wing of Teixeira. And on the brakes, Shipston's car certainly looks a lot better coming through the mid corner and then stamping on the loud pedal, pulling out a little bit of a gap before the next corner of Hamilton. So the acceleration certainly keeping the GTR in check, although a little bit too much grass sends Teixeira's car nearly up on two wheels. Whittle nearly gets caught out by how slow the duo ahead were going into Oggies. Has to check up, run a little bit wide. Let's catch a race replay, maybe from the external camera here. This is actually Theobald Roskam and Mike Redford. That's contact going down into Agostini, and it's such a weird corner, Agostini approaching it. If you miss your braking point, you have missed your braking point, Callum, and I think that is exactly what happened right there. As we then catch a race replay, this is Reiher and Galloway. It's almost a 1-to-1, and I think Jesse's telling us this is a new replay. This isn't a replay of a replay. Oh no, that was an old replay. We're being confirmed. I was going to say, hopefully that's not happened again, because that was almost textbook on that one. Tom Shipston losing a big bunch of time there to the back of Bruno Teixeira. Teixeira's GTR has escaped up the road, Callum. I'm wondering if there's been a mistake from Tom Shipston in the number 60, because he's now coming under pressure from Richard Whittle in the 957.
Yeah, could it be a little bit mistake? Maybe our tools picked up maybe a little bit of contact or a mistake there. Jesse Lee just confirming we haven't seen anything, so we can theorize on this. But, you know, Tom Shipston has seen a lot of the rear of that GTR today, and I can imagine maybe getting a little bit frustrated. He knows he's got the pace on Teixeira, so maybe a little bit later into each break, going a little bit deeper into the braking zones and making a mistake, and then dropping a little bit further down the field, and now inheriting some pressure from Richard Whittle. Wouldn't be too concerned with that. He knows he's an equal machinery. He's just going to get right back up there onto the rear of Teixeira and try to gain that position, and we can see just how much better the Ferrari is. As Richard Whittle go right around the outside there into Oggies, trying to hold that through Williams and into the Bentley straight, but just maybe a bit too late into the braking there. This has definitely been the fight I've been more interested to be watching today, John, especially as Tom Shipston using everything in that Ferrari's power to try and get past the GTR, but he just can't quite get there.
Yeah, absolutely. So using, you know, all of the prancing horses, but unfortunately just not enough to get through the Nissan GTR at this stage. Although just reaching the 5-minute mark to go now as we ride on board with Benjamin Heilman. He's onto the back of Aaron Jackson. Of course, that's going to be the next position he tries to take on his comeback drive through the field. And we do have insurance reports coming in thick and fast at the moment, as we see a few time penalties appearing on the screen. Van der Linde with a 5-second, Ibiza Racer 15, and then we've got Galloway, I believe it was, down the bottom end of the field with 10 seconds. Reiher with plus 30 as it gets very close into turn one indeed between Aaron Jackson and Grim Lilith, and Benjamin Harman is sizing up the move now down into the Montreal hairpin. Up the inside he goes. Grim's going to have to go the long way round, and McLaren just gets better traction off the corner, but that was a little bit frantic going down into turn one of Riches, and somehow everybody getting it out of the other side clean and safe. To the stewards reports we go. Lap 1 with a turn 1, it's a 44 and a 73, no further action, both drivers merging into the same line. Lap 1, turn 5 involved the 44, the 73 and the 157, it's a 10 seconds for the 73 for avoidable contact with moderate time loss. We then have lots of warnings being given out for the 115, the 527, with 2 warnings to their name, both for avoidable contact as well. Of course, the 527 netting a 5 seconds due to their second warning. That was for lap 4, turn 2, involving the 96 and the 527. We then got no further action, minor contact between the 527 and the 31. Then we go to lap 5, turn 1, involving the 31, the 808 and the 22. It's a 15 seconds for the 22. 15 seconds for the 808, I beg your pardon, avoidable contact with moderate time loss. Then go to lap 8, turn 3, involving the 31, the 777 and the 73. It's a 20 seconds for the 777. That's for avoidable contact, moderate damage and time loss with multiple cars involved in that one. We then go to lap 9, turn 2, involving the 8 and the 96. That's a racing incident minor contact, before we head up to a lap 9, turn 12, involving the 73 and the 777. It's a 10 seconds for the 777 for avoidable contact, moderate damage and time loss. And of course, interesting to note, Callum, drivers today not able to undo their wrongs, shall we say. Of course, in the typical format of the endurance rounds and the lengthier sprint rounds, of course, the 1 hour sprint races on the calendar. Drivers, of course, during their pit stops will take the time penalty. So the 5 seconds, 10 seconds, however many seconds will be added on to their stationary time. And then they'll be released from the pit lane with the chance in the second half, essentially, to drive faster than everybody to try and negate the 5 seconds they've just lost with the time penalty. But unfortunately, not happening here today. Of course, this is the first of 2 30-minute sprint races. So whatever time penalty you've netted, that is it. That will be added on to your race time at the end. So positions are going to be slightly shuffled and drivers will have to open up gaps much more than they think to be able to cement themselves in the position. Just cast your eye down to P18, of course. Van der Linde with 5 seconds shuffles him down to behind Roskamp, but still ahead of Redford. So again, if Redford can close that gap up to 2 seconds or so, he may find himself with a free position as well. But drivers certainly going to be trying to get the hammer down currently, especially with those red boxes next to their names.
You're absolutely right, John. All these time penalties that are coming through now are going to hurt the drivers even more. In a typical 60-minute race, obviously you've got more time to gain the various time loss to the people around you and maybe not negate. As we've got to move Badowski, trying to get the position back from Lawrence. It seemed like he was throwing a little bit of a tap there, and he spins Badowski. Another one for the stewards that I don't think they're going to take too kindly for. And Badowski, we said when Lawrence originally got past that these Lambos are not going to let them get away with it too easy. And we saw Badowski with a wonderful move into P2. How he got that stopped is unbelievable. And Lawrence just taking too much speed through the mid-corner and on-corner exit. Sadly comes into the rear of Badowski, and I think that's going to be one for the stewards. Again, probably netting a 5 or a 10-second penalty. It's all down to the stewards there. But that's gonna hurt him a lot. As looking through the order, just a 1.5 second gap, so he could be losing a lot of points here for the championship with that incident.
Yeah, of course, could be a time penalty coming in for the 171 very shortly. Of course, only 10 seconds on the clock, so this may be added on after the race time. So we'll have to keep your eyes peeled on the stewards chat to keep you updated with that one. Tom Shipstead back onto the rear of Bruno Teixeira though for P11. Of course, the number 11 GTR in P11, which is quite adeptly on that one. Coming through, of course, Nelson and Brundle. The GTR definitely looks like it's struggling in these slower corners, as we speculated earlier. And again, the grunt of that thing certainly keeping it very much alive as we are actually finished the race. I've just noticed we've just missed the race leader crossing the line. I thought it was going one more, and I think Jesse Lee did as well. Philip Breakster will come through to take race 1. Christopher Streppen will come through in P2. Andy Boardman in P3, and Emo Plate with the last position gained, of course, on the last lap there up into P4. Martin Lawrence, Badowski, Stevens, Eraser, Stevenson managed to fend off Ulrich as well. Teixeira stays safe from Shipston. And then we've got, of course, Richard Withall, Aaron Jackson, Harman only up into P15 from his comeback drive. Grim Lilith, followed by Ted Edwards, Van der Linde and Roskamp. Mike Redford will come through in P20. Kenneth Dow just in the back of shot there for P21. Ibiza Racer in P22, albeit with a 15-second time penalty. So Foster should, in theory, jump up the order there. Kevin Boss will head up the last few of the finishers. Of course, just behind him, he's got Byford, and Whittle. Although, of course, time penalties to come in, so these race results will change. And Martin Lawrence has netted a 5-second penalty very late. Of course, Stewart's just about getting that one in before the race session closed off. Of course, lap 17, that's turn 2 involving the 29 and the 171. 5 seconds for the 171 for avoidable contact with minor time loss. So the results now on the screen. This is, of course, adjusted for the time penalties given, where, of course, we've got Philip Brewster at the top, Christopher Streppen just over 5 seconds behind, followed by Andy Boardman just over 1.2 seconds behind there. A big gap back, of course, to Mo Plate, netted up from the incident between Lawrence and, of course, Badowski. Badowski P5, Matt Stevens P6, John Racer P7, before we see Martin Lawrence down in P8 with the 5-second time penalty. Les Stevenson just inside your top 10 with Martin Ulrich to boot. Those two going toe-to-toe for the majority of the session. Bruno Teixeira managed to fend off Tom Shipston somehow. That's no feat, not to shout home about. That's definitely a good drive from the Portuguese driver in the number 11. Richard Whittle in P13, followed by Aaron Jackson in the first of the Dirt Rally 2.0 themed liveries, of course, for the new series that we're running here at RCI. Benjamin Harmon on his comeback drive managed to get to P15, split the Audis with Grim Lilith just behind. Ted Edwards in the Mustang just behind Grim Lilith, with Theobald Roskam behind him in the Porsche, and Van der Linde in P19. Kenneth Dow, good improvement there from his qualifying session. Cast your mind back, of course, managed to qualify, I think, P29. So that's a good position gain for the Scottish driver there. Mike Redford in P21, followed by Martin Foster in P22. Ibiza Racer in P23. Again, a few of those guys being shuffled about for time penalties. Kevin Boss, Trevor Byford, and Keith Whittle, the last on the road to finish. Galloway, Reiher, Phillips, and Calatayud, unfortunately, did not finish the session. And official word from Carlos, he lost his shifters on the opening lap, or the warm-up lap, should we say, as we released the cars away from the grid. Obviously, he didn't manage to carry enough speed through the circuit, ended up getting teleported back to the pits. And of course, when he did leave the pit lane, again, no shifters to be found on his hardware. So very unfortunate there for Carlos. Of course, an excellent qualifying session from the Spaniard. Of course, put him on P3 overall. So everybody will jump up essentially another position into the race. And it's going to be a very interesting race too, as of course drivers have got the bit of a manic race out the way, Callum. We always say there's a manic and a calm race, and I think that was a slight manic one, although it did tend to settle down once we got the opening few laps out of the way.
I'm a little bit skeptical as to whether I could call that manic. I've definitely seen more manic, and I have a feeling we've probably got some more to come in race 2. There were some brilliant drives up there. I mean, we do have to call out Philip Brewster, took that commanding lead from lap 1, turn 1, and just absolutely run away with it. And where he sits currently, P2 in the championship, after that race and potentially another solid second race, he could be leading the championship, John, with 2 laps to go. And this could be a very, very pivotal week for him in that championship fight.
Yeah, of course, could be a good haul of points coming in for some of the drivers here. Of course, we are at round 5 of a 7-round championship. Next week, we head to Donington Park. That's for another 1-hour sprint race before finalising at Brands Hatch the following week. That's August 5th, of course, for another 1-hour race. Both races, of course, mandatory pit stop, 1 litre of fuel required, fixed refuelling, and a 30-minute pit window. So again, should give drivers an opportunity to undo their wrongs should they feel the wrath of the stewards from the opening lap. Of course, as we wait for race 2 to begin, it's a good time again to thank you guys at home for joining us. We'd like to welcome every single one of you to RCI. And if you do want to get involved with what we have here on offering, head on over to the website. That's racerci.com. Sign-ups, of course, just opened for the Nürburgring Nordschleife 6 Hours Part 2. This time, of course, taking GT3, GT4 and TCX cars to the circuit for 6 hours of multi-class madness. Teams can be between 1 and 4 drivers if you're feeling brave enough to tackle all 6 hours solo. Be our guest. Of course, practice and qualifying will be hosted in a separate server with no stint timer in the race. Should open up the strategy as well to, of course, those drivers with slightly less fuel consumptive cars, should we say, of course, able to elongate their stints that a little bit more, maybe over some of their rivals. That, of course, takes place at on August 3rd. That's a Saturday for those of you that aren't as quick to the calendar as we might think, as we begin our grid walk, of course, with Jesse Lee, where at the end he should, in theory, play Frogger as all the cars get underway. Of course, a big thank you to you guys at home, but also a big thank you to the partners here at RCI. Of course, they are around the bottom left-hand side of the screen. Of course, you can spot plenty of them over the RCI cars. Of course, AK Esports, a top provider of premium esports services and equipment, offering everything you need to elevate your competitive gaming experience, from high-end performance hardware to expert coaching and, of course, event management. Plus, they provide our servers, of course, here at RCI, ensuring smooth and reliable racing for everyone. If you believe they can help you at all, be sure to check out the link in the description down below. And I bumped into AK Esports actually at Goodwood, and fantastic setup they had. Very knowledgeable people there as well, so a big shout out to those guys. Of course, Go Setups, another one of our partners here, providing expertly crafted car setups tailored to help you get the most out of your racing experience in titles such as Assetto Corsa and also, of course, Assetto Corsa Competizione. Featuring a plethora of esports stars on their team, you can be sure the setup you choose has extensive hours behind it. Again, you can find their link down below. And of course, 2 new partners to us here this year at RCI. Moser Racing, who we are thrilled to partner with, a leader in high quality sim racing gear. From precision engineered steering wheels to durable pedals and advanced wheel bases, Moser Racing has everything you need to boost your racing experience. If you'd like to support our community by using our affiliate link to get these fantastic products, then be sure to do so down below. Sprinkle some pennies into the RCI pot. Again, you can find that in the description. And of course, another new partner for us here in 2024, Motorsport UK Esports here at RCI. We've also recently become a Motorsport UK Esports recommended community. It's the digital racing division, essentially, of Motorsport UK, the governing body for motorsport all around Great Britain. They, of course, organise and sanction official sim racing championships, promoting high standards and governance in esports. By engaging with the digital racing community and offering development pathways, Motorsport UK Esports helps sim racers progress in their careers, potentially even leading to real-world racing opportunities, as they also collaborate with industry stakeholders to host events and promote the growth of sim racing. And they were the official host of the FIA Motorsport Games qualifier for the UK leg. That's, of course, happening in October later on this year. So again, keep your eyes peeled on all the socials for that one. You may recognize a few names sprinkled in amongst the field as well, as we have a fantastic rundown of the Dirt Rally 2.0 liveries. Of course, quick reminder there, that's a handy hyperlink on the rear bumper. Depending on how fast you can write or type or screenshot, then be sure to check out our Dirt Rally 2.0 club, where we're hosting fantastic rally events at the moment. As we begin the grid off, drivers firing the cars and getting underway, and Jesse Lee does his best Frogger cosplay at this point, trying to avoid everybody as they peel away from the grid. Should be fairly safe today, Jesse. Only a few cars left as we begin to get back underway again. So everybody now, Callum, mental reset. They've had time to go away, take a drink, maybe take a step out of the rig, go for a little walk around their house, and come back fresh in the mind that this is another race. Of course, 30 minutes on the clock, much the same, and we're going to see how this one goes down. But the lightning start, brace the had. Is Verstappen going to be more on his toes this time, as that's where our stewards are currently residing, up in race control. That's one of the scariest rooms on the circuit, I would say, Callum.
One of the scariest rooms, absolutely. Big shout out to our live stewards today. I often spend some time in the stewards box for races here at RCI, and as being one myself, I can't appreciate the work they do week in, week out to make sure that we are driving safely and the standards are as good as they can be. And they did do it all voluntarily, John. They're wonderful people and a wonderful team that we have here at RCI. Going back to your point about the start, John, something we haven't done in a while is a bit of a race prediction. Now, I'm going to lay down some ground rules. You can't say Philip Brejta, as that'll be the easy answer after the absolute domination he had during race 1. Who do you have here for race 2?
I'm going Andy Boardman, dark horse. Brejta, Verstappen collide, and Boardman profits out of it.
We should have.
I don't know if that's going to happen, of course, being teammates, but you never know in the heat of the moment, of course. Drivers are only human, Callum.
I mean, we can't be hoping for a crash in the top 4, but you know, definitely wouldn't mind a bit of drama, a bit of hard racing. I'm gonna support my McLaren fans, and I'm gonna go for Benjamin Harman here. I think he's fired up. He knows how to pass. He did it in abundance in that previous race. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Brejta for this one. Oh, Brejta, sorry, Harman. Just completely changed my mind there. No, I'm going for Harman for this one.
I was going to say, you made a ground rule, you couldn't pick Brejta, but yeah, Harman certainly a good pick, I'd say, on that one. Callum definitely got some pace in the 796 McLaren. And just to touch on your point, of course, the race stewards being, of course, all volunteers here at RCI. Everybody is essentially a volunteer at RCI, and we do it for the love of the community here. And I know a lot of people do watch the races back, so again, if you're listening back on this one, thank you very much indeed. And if you do want to get involved, we do have a staff vacancies board. If you do want to check that out, head on over to the Discord. Currently still on the lookout, I think, for commentators, broadcasters, and stewards. In brackets, Ryan Gill still can never have enough stewards, and certainly that is the case, of course, with the longer races that we do host here at RCI. But tonight is a short one. Once again, we're going for 30 minutes here at Snetterton. Begin to prepare yourself for the drama that could unfold in this race. Drivers dragging the brakes, of course, the turbocharged cars, getting those turbos nice and spooled, ready for the launch, as Philip Brejta, of course, watch him on the right-hand side, and an absolutely electric start from P2 on the grid. Wait for the green flags to go, and it goes out of the sidewall indeed. Brejta again with a lightning start, already ahead of Verstappen. The Aston certainly not the best car off the line. Andy Boardman tucks in, followed by Holman. Drivers 2x2 in the background. There's a little bit of bumping from Les Stevenson and Matt Stevens. That's John Aracer off to driver's left. Keeps it underway, keeps it going the right way, should we say. Doesn't fire it back over onto the racing line that we see so much sometimes here at RCI, and that's one of the Mustangs. I think that's Van der Linde in the 527. Slightly out of sequence here as we see Reiher and Foster going side by side. This time down into Palmer. Of course, Reiher has the longer way around to do. Doesn't get it done. Foster up a position there as the timing gate begins to sort itself out as we go through the first sector. Ibiza Racer getting very close to the back of Foster in the number 44 there, and Reiher gets the move signed, sealed and delivered through Agostini. Everybody line of stern at the moment. It's a bit confused at why the 527 was leading the race, but of course the timing tower has yet updated. Now looking very condensed, Callum, towards the front of the field. We've got Verstappen nearly pushing Brejta down the Bentley straight. With him brings Boardman, Heilman and Plate, and Podolski even in the background could capitalise on this one as we head down to Brundle and Nelson. There's not going to be a passing move down here. Surely drivers getting very close between each other, riding on board with Philip Brejta here, coming through the bomb hole. Everybody kind of segregated out a little bit better. This is what I like to see. I like to see a little bit of a gap coming into these braking zones, Callum, because it gets very, very scary here at Snetterton. If you do miss your marks, that is absolutely detrimental. And Jesse Lee, curse the broadcaster, maybe coming in here. That was clean in the quote of Jesse Lee, and then he corrects himself to cleaner as we see a yellow flag out very momentarily for a car. I'm not sure what that was. Possibly everybody checking up in the last corner. Can Verstappen go the long way around into turn one? He tries it. The Aston is going to have to do it. He's over the curb. He's in the grass. The bounce happens. Back onto the circuit. He comes. Harman has to take avoiding action.
Brejta's off.
And Brejta's off. Andy Boardman into the race lead. I think I called this one, Callum. I think I might have called this on the warm-up lap with the predictions. This is fantastic stuff going on here in race two.
John, how have you called this to an absolute T? Such hard affair racing, and they've managed to find themselves again on the racetrack. Breaststroke and Verstappen side by side, but much further down the field. An incredible lap one. We saw Breaststroke get the textbook start again, a bit of deja vu, just ran away into turn one. But as we peered over to T2, I could see Verstappen and Breaststroke side by side through turn two. That then followed suit, line astern, Verstappen as close as you possibly can get to the rear of a car without crashing him throughout the whole rest of the lap. That then amounted to another move going into turn one, where Verstappen just overcooked it around the outside, probably just hit a little bit of marvels, ran a touch too wide, came off the track, slid straight across again. Thankfully didn't collect anyone, but we didn't know what happened to Brescia there. Did he overbrake himself, but just managed to not quite not quite get round turn two, and ended up facing the wrong way. Not really sure how that happened, but either way, John, I'm starting to consider that you may be someone running the Matrix or something, because that was absolutely called to a T.
Yeah, I think I'm going to play the lottery this week. I mean, that was a
what are your numbers? Let me know.
I'll let you know when I go and buy the ticket, just in case it does come true. But yeah, Breaststroke, like you say, and Verstappen coming together through turn one. Verstappen off to driver's right. Again, I don't know if Breaststroke was maybe just distracted by where Verstappen had gone, maybe trying to see if he could give the place back, but it was already too late by that point, of course, and maybe just outran himself at the Montreal hairpin, missed his braking point. And as we said earlier on in the broadcast, of course, when you miss your braking point that fraction too much here at Snetterton, it really does mess you up for the corner. As we catch a race replay here, this is between John Eraser. This is a very messy one. Just trying to work out where we are, and Galloway collects on the front end. I think this is coming through between Oggies and Williams, if I'm right in saying, just after, of course, Hamilton on this one. Maybe we'll get a better angle this time as Verstappen and Eraser get together. I think that's what causes it, and then Galloway comes steaming in, kisses the front of the McLaren, and yeah, I'm pretty sure that is just before we get to Williams coming out onto the Bentley straight there on that one. And this is how it all unfolded. Let's get another race replay. Oh, Mike Redford's already backwards as well in the front of the shot, and then Eraser tries to split Ibiza Racer, and it all kicks off down at Williams. I'm not sure what happened. We said this would be the slightly calmer race, and it's already unfolded. Mike Redford just ahead of the shot there. That's Foster into the back of Redford. Foster checks up, kind of dillies and dallies on the racing line, and just kind of causes chaos behind him as everybody tries to take avoiding action, and lots more contact ensues. And I thought this would be the calmer race, Callum, but this has certainly turned out to be the more frantic one, and we're only not even 6 minutes into this one. Still just over 24 minutes to go.
Well, you called that we may have some drama at the front and Andy Boardman leading, but I did say don't count out the drama-filled race 2, as it's already proving itself to be just that. Some other battles happening around the field. Martin Lawrence in and amongst the Lambos once again. Hopefully that will amount to some more great racing like we saw in lap 1. Les Stevenson sitting back into P10, but Tom Shipston not looking at the back of a GTR, which I'm sure he can be very, very happy about today. Instead, he's chasing down Grim Lilith, who's had a brilliant start to get to P8 in that Audi, probably capitalising on a few instances. As we ride on board with Breaststroke, he's already back up to P17, chasing down Theobald Rothkamp, makes the dive into Oggie's very tight corner that just feels like it tightens on the exit, and you get very squirrely on the rear, but Rothkamp with just a better traction in that Porsche around the outside, slots back ahead, but Brescia's going to see if he can take the grunt of that BMW into Brundle. And he does. Yeah. A wonderful move there from Brescia.
Yeah, good move there from Brescia, sorry, on Theobald Rothkamp again. Again, another name, if it's, chasing back through the field, almost Brescia has to do a Heilmann at this point to see how far up they can get themselves in race 2. Of course, Heilmann tucked into the back of Andy Boardman. This isn't a repeat of Alton Park you're watching right now. This is, of course, Snetterton, but again, roles still the same. Andy Boardman leads Benjamin Heilmann into turn 1 they go. Of course, the grunt of the Mustang was the problem last time, and of course, plenty of straights here at Snetterton. You've got the centre straight, of course, the Bentley straight, and a few mini ones between all the corners. So it's going to be crucial for Boardman to get the run out of the corner to try and get himself into the next corner ahead of Heilmann. But equally so, Heilmann can't be too phased by the dirty air. He's going to have to try and hustle the McLaren as much as he can through this next 22 minutes or so to see how far they can truly push each other. Of course, they are breaking away from the cars behind. Emo plate 3.5 seconds back, but with him brings, of course, Badowski, Lawrence, Phillips, Stevens, and Lilith. And I think even Shipston in that realm with Les Stevenson, Ulrich, and Whittle all behind him. So a big train of cars, and we've got a yellow flag out for the number 505. I think Byford possibly involved in an incident here down in the Montreal hairpin. Looks a bit slow coming off the corner. Kenneth Dow into the back of him. Very unfortunate waits, I think, for him to get back underway. Byford's off admiring the scenery there. Not sure what's happened to the RPMS SimSport car, but certainly cutting the grass for the MSV group. So I'm sure we can claim some of the cost back there on the hire of the circuit. But towards the front, of course, Badowski, it's the battle of the Raging Bulls this time into the inside of the bomb hole. He looks not enough of an overlap. Plate, of course, chops the nose, and it's very much a one-line corner through the bomb hole and through Coram. Of course, it's super hard to go side by side through these two corners, and Murray's is, certainly off the cards for a passing place. But again, never say never. We have seen wilder things happen here at Snetterton, and everybody line of stern down the start finish straight. Boardman, of course, hiding the McLaren just behind him, but look at this scary train. Even Ted Edwards and Tex Shearer nearly on the back of them, Callum. So one mistake at the front here, and this is going to be a load of places lost for everyone involved.
You're absolutely right, John. All aboard the Lambo train of Emil Platter right now, as he is soaking up an abundance of pressure here. He knows what it's like. He had a brilliant lap one fighting with Badowski and Lawrence, so it's not something he's too dissimilar with. But how is he going to handle the pressure, knowing he's got this train just barrowing down on him, everyone within a second of each other? He just runs a little bit wide on exit there, giving Badowski a little bit of room to maybe dip the nose in, but he's holding this position very, very well. I think this could be, if he holds on to this, one of his best results here in RCI, and it just looks like Badowski has so much confidence through that mid corner right now, and how he's going to use that to try and get the position is what we're going to be excited to see over the course of the next 20 minutes.
Yeah, absolutely. So, of course, Raging Bulls going toe-to-toe at the front of the grid. And, of course, Richard Phillips in there as Verstappen splits Jackson and Roscam coming out onto the Bentley straight. I'm not sure how he's just managed that. But, of course, he is called Moses Verstappen in the RCI Esports Discord for a reason. And watch him part these two cars straight up the middle. Roscam stayed right. Jackson stayed left. Verstappen read that situation perfectly. Up the middle he went, the 747 there gaining 2 positions in one corner. Up into P16, Brewster is the next car ahead of him. 2.1 seconds though, Callum. It's going to be a big ask. And again, are we going to see the teammates collide as we see a flash of the hazards from Matt Stevens? I think Grim Lilith has just bump drafted him down the centre straight, down into turn 1. These guys working together, of course. Grim Lilith in a bit of an RPMS sandwich at the moment. Tom Shipstead, of course, breathing down his neck, and Richard Phillips even ahead of the number 100 Mercedes there. So Randy, please more soup. Grim Lilith certainly in the thick of it right now. The only driver we're missing from this fight, I think, is, of course, Yao Manzo, who we saw last week going toe-to-toe with Grim. So unfortunate they couldn't be here tonight. But yeah, RPMS, as always, Callum, putting on a great show here on Mondays.
Absolutely, and Grim definitely getting his serving of the soup today as he tries to chase down Matt Stevens in that Audi. Grim having a bit of a struggling race in lap one. Sorry, in lap one, in race one. We do know he's running 0TC in the true rally fashion, so trying to hold on to this car is a challenge for him today, but he's doing a wonderful job of it. Just, I think we saw him bump drafting Matt Stevens into turn 1, but this is quite the line of stern. But as we get with these slipstream trains, it does make overtaking more difficult because everyone is getting a little bit of a taste of slipstream. You just saw it there with Ulrich just poking his nose to the side, seeing if he can get a little bit of an overlap on Les, but Les just taking that slipstream from the big trainers. How close was Benjamin Harmon to the back of Andy Borderman there anymore? And we could have had a little bit of a touch into the lead, in the lead pack as we go on board. There is absolutely nothing in that. Maybe just bump drafting through a corner. New strategy I haven't seen before, John. Are we looking at potentially a repeat of Alton? Are we looking at another incident between the two lead pairs, potentially bringing the Lambos into play for a 1-2? That's probably what Emil Platter's thinking right now. He's soaking up the pressure of this train while probably licking his lips, seeing how close these two are together, knowing the history for the championship, and just hoping something happens that will bring him into more of a contention in this race.
Yeah, Jesse Lee reporting contact in our ears between the two race leaders, so it definitely got very, very close indeed, and fingers crossed we don't see a repeat of Alton Park. Of course, how race 2 ended there with both cars off, but again, it is a possibility, and again, John Dalton isn't going to call this one, but maybe you have, Callum. Of course, maybe we could see the race leaders collide, and then, of course, the Lamborghinis taking full advantage and seeing two of those on the podium along with Martin Lawrence, should things remain how they are. Philip Bregster, meanwhile, behind Bruno Teixeira. GTR trying to size him up. Of course, Christopher Streppen there has brought the gap down by a whole second in the last couple of laps or so to put themselves to the back of the number 25. Ted Edwards weaving out of line just ahead there, trying to size up Richard Whittle in the 957. And Bregster getting very close into Brundle and Nelson. And I said it's a tricky corner earlier on in the broadcast. Some drivers braver than others into Brundle. Of course, if you carry lots of speed through Brundle, it's very hard to then get the car stopped for Nelson, but equally, if you don't carry enough speed through Brundle, you then leave yourself vulnerable going into the next corner of Nelson, and that's brought Christopher Streppen certainly back into this fight, tucked up now behind the BMW. It's two RCI Esports drivers apiece, the number 25 and the 747, as we saw a brief flash of a yellow flag. I didn't quite catch who that could have been, but again, everybody trading positions at the moment, and Benjamin Harmon still with the fastest lap of the race, and Bruno Teixeira dipping a wheel in the grass, and Christopher Streppen doing the same. Teixeira's gone defensive into the Montreal hairpin. Bregster's going to try the old up and under, but can't get the car pitched in enough to get under the GTR. Everybody remains line of stern coming in into Palmer, of course, running down into Agostini, and looks like Grim Lilith ahead, darting out of the queue ever so slightly. Not sure if they're trying to size up a move as well, but Bregster's having to go defensive into Agostini. Teixeira's managed to back up the BMW enough that it's now put it into the claws of the Aston Martin in the 747. And this is a very interesting fight indeed. We're not used to seeing, are we, these two fighting in and amongst other cars, Callum. Normally these two, of course, out front, miles ahead of anybody. Cast your mind back to the Nürburgring again. You just expect it, don't you? At the front of the field, two big names, but however, they're in the mid-pack, and they're going to have to be careful, of course, of Teixeira ahead. Should, again, he make a mistake or Bregster slightly misjudges, something has to carry a little bit less speed into a corner. Christopher Streppen, again, may be caught out by this, so, again, it's certainly adding another factor into the fight for these top guys.
It is, John, and what I find interesting is there's no working together between these two. Usually, you might just have a little flash of the headlights, say, look, let's work together, let's climb through the field. We know we've got the pace on these guys, but no, they want to pass each other in and amongst the fight. Christopher Streppen seizing the opportunity there with Bregster just making a bit of a mistake into T2, displacing his line into Palmer's, and then just seeing that he's got a move into Agostini, and he's so close again through T1. Would he have a run into the Montreal hairpin? But every time he makes those moves, he's going to be losing time, and Verstappen's going to want to be right there to pick up the pieces as he does there. Bregster just late on the brakes into Montreal, probably reacting to Teixeira, and Verstappen just poking his nose in, being like, I'm still here and I want this position. No working together. They're fighting each other just as much as they're fighting the other guys, and with both of them joining the club of staring behind this grunt of the GTR driven by Bruno Teixeira. Probably not too pleased with that, as it's extremely hard to pass the GTR, as we all know, but if any two drivers on the field can do it, it's these two.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Tom Shipston would get past Teixeira eventually in race one, but alas, it wasn't to be. So the Portuguese driver soaking up all the pressure tonight, but being put on by not only Tom Shipston, but two of the biggest names, I'd say, in the RCI community, of course, representing us on the esports team. And the 777 has gone for an excursion somewhere off into the grass, gets it back underway. That's, of course, Raiha in the McLaren, currently in P25 overall. They get it back underway there. And of course, meanwhile, Teixeira absorbs all the pressure still through Brundle and Nelson. And he's not really holding him up all too much. There's a mistake coming out the bomb hole, though. That's going to open the door through Coram. Of course, Teixeira is going to be on the outside line through the marbles. That's not going to be good for the tyres. And Verstappen is going to try and go the long way around at Murray's over the sausage curb. Maybe a bit too generous on the space given, but both drivers through there. Brewster up into P14. Christoph Verstappen P15. Teixeira unfortunately shuffled down to P16, but to hold off, Brewster and Verstappen, kudos to Teixeira there. That was no, shallow feat, should we say, and that should be certainly something you put on your CV. Held up two of the top esports drivers in a 30-minute sprint race. Tick. Definitely get that on there. That's a good claim to fame there for the Portuguese driver, especially in a car like the GTR, of course. It's not the typical usual meta pick that we see a lot of the time in the esports realm of ACC. So certainly a bit of an underused car and doing very well indeed. Meanwhile, riding on board, Philip Brewster, the next car in his sights, Ted Edwards, number 8 Race Ventura Mustang. Of course, we saw in race 1, Ted giving up the space to Benjamin Harmon on his comeback drive. Will we see the same cooperation this time from Ted, or will Ted try and hold off as the gap opens up? Brewster fires it to the inside of Oggies. Ted's over the grass trying to make the Mustang, just enough space given. Tries to do the old up and under, get the better drive off the corner. And I think the grunt of the Mustang is certainly going to do it. But I think he could be bump drafting Brewster down the straight. He is indeed tucked in behind the BMW M4. Darts out. Oh, lets Christoph Verstappen through. I thought we were going to see a very good fight there from the Race Ventura Mustang, but it wasn't to be. Sensibly, I'd say Callum lets the two fast guys go. And of course, that puts Brewster up into P13, Verstappen P14. And their comeback drive is on. Just over 10 minutes to go. Will we see them inside the top 10? Time will tell, because there's some big names ahead. Of course, Whittle, there's then a gap to Ulrich before we see, of course, Stevenson and Shipston together. And then, of course, this man here, Grim Lilith, in the front of the shot. With the RPMS boys, of course, slightly up the road. So, highest prediction. I'm going to ask you for your highest position prediction. That's a mouthful to say. At this time of night, on where Brewster and Verstappen will end up on the field. Just under 10 minutes to go.
I'm gonna say they get up to Grim Lilith, and that's it. As we go straight onto a race replay with Keith Whittle and Ibiza Race. Ibiza Race trying to see if he's got some room down the inside. A little bit of argy-bargy as they come through Oggies and into Williams. Not quite seeing how that move played out, but as we ride onto it live, Ibiza Race did get the position, and now Keith Whittle is in front of Raiha, seeing how that battle at the rear of the field pans out as we go straight on board with the leaders. Still half a second between these two. Absolutely nothing can separate them. Very much a rinse and repeat from Alton Park of Benjamin Harmon, chasing down Andy Boardman as much as he can, but just cannot get past the grunt of the Mustang, hoping for a mistake, hoping for an error that sees a way through for Harmon.
Yeah, fingers crossed indeed. I mean, we're of course seeing a bit of a repeat, aren't we, from Alton Park, where Harmon's certainly got it in the corners, and then we get to the straights, and of course the grunt of the Mustang pulls out that gap ever so slightly on the McLaren, despite even having the slipstream advantage. Of course, let's ride on board with Andy Boardman as he goes towards the start-finish line, of course, down the centre straight towards Richards. And you can already see the gap that opens up just down the one straight alone. That's a good couple of car lengths there that Harmon's then got to make up in the corners before we, of course, get to the next straight, which essentially begins as you come out of Oggies. It's a good run down to Agostini. A few kinks in Hamilton, Oggies and Williams before, of course, the long drag again down the Bentley straight. Of course, Brundle, Nelson, the bomb hole, corners where the McLaren should be strong, as we see Brewster making up a position, this time on Whittle. And of course, where Brewster goes, of course, Verstappen will follow. He's also up the inside through the Montreal hairpin, although Whittle isn't taking this one line down. He's certainly racing him into the next corner of Palmer, but Verstappen around the outside. Clean textbook move there. Onwards he goes with Bracer, of course, losing a little bit of time for the BMW, so he's going to have to make that one up as they begin to catch the back of Ulrich and Stevenson and, of course, Shipston. 3 more cars to dispatch of in 7.5 minutes before your prediction comes true, Callum. As we see, of course, the gap is going to be opening up here between Heilmann and Boardman. In the background, you still see Emo Plate, you still see Badowski and Martin Lawrence looming, as well as the RPMS cars, of course, Richard Phillips and Matt Stevens. Much better run this time for Richard Phillips. And I've just noticed, Callum, we have a few live stewards reports to go through. Not sure if you've got those to hand, whether you want to go through and see what's happened between Foster and Racer. Of course, Reiher also has a penalty to boot. I'm sure we have probably a few more to come as well.
Yeah, I'm happy to go through these with you, John, as they have now started to come through. The live stewards doing a wonderful job once again. Just quickly going to my prediction. This race has been so action-packed. When I said that prediction, I didn't realise the time we had left, John. This race has absolutely flown by. So if you would like to grant me a re-prediction, that'd be greatly appreciated. But if not, I'll stick to my guns with these guys reaching Grim Lilith. So just quickly running through the ports, we actually got a little bit of a fight here for P1. Andy Boardman and Heilmann very close again through T2 and through Palmer. Will Heilmann get the exit to have a run into Agostini? I think he's a little bit too far back this time, but these two, you just cannot separate them race in, race out. So just going quickly to the instant reports from our live stewards. We've got a lap 1, turn 1 involving the 523, 73 and 420 was a racing incident, which was a bit of a lap 1. Just a general lap 1 collision there that you see time and time again. No one wholly at fault for that one. Lap 1, turn 12 involving the 777 and the 699 was a warning for the 777, but that's been upgraded to a 5-second because he also received a warning earlier on in the lap. Turn 2, lap 2 involving the 808 and the 777, that's another 5 seconds for the 777 for avoidable contact and minor time loss. The 95 and the 44 on lap 2, that's a 10 seconds for the car number 44, so that's only half of the penalties we've seen the number 44 with. Lap 2 T6 involving the 747 and the 699, 44 and the 25. That was that big collision that took a few race replays to see what actually occurred there. That's been deemed a 10 seconds for the car number 44. Got a couple more RIs and a couple more warnings. A few people with the warnings, another warning there, and they'll be inheriting another 5 seconds. But that's all we've got from the stewards, who are doing a wonderful job in these 2 races today, John.
Yeah, of course, a big shout out to our live stewards indeed. And this was the 5-second penalty that we spoke about earlier on, as you read through, Callum. Of course, 2 cars coming together on the exit of the Montreal hairpin. It's a little bit unfortunate there for Reiher, but both drivers keeping it relatively under control given the lap 1 chaos. Meanwhile, Benjamin Heilmann looking to the inside of Agostini, although not close enough for a lunge up the inside. We've got a yellow flag out on the start-finish straight. That's for the number 41. That's Martin Ulrich. Something's happened to the Aston Martin there. Still showing the yellow. I'm not sure if it's a hardware failure, maybe for the Danish driver. He is in the pit lane, so a little bit of a bug there, I believe, in ACC's terms of physics. Could potentially be a hardware issue, though we are speculating at this point. Fingers crossed we do get an official word from Martin Ulrich on that one. But of course, the grunt of the Mustang still keeping this fight very much in check between Benjamin Heilmann, still within the half-a-second region that he has been within, you know, so many laps, and it's such a kind of deja vu moment, I would say. You know, Benjamin Heilmann certainly been looking at the back of this Ford Mustang for far too long through the Alton Park race 1 and 2, and he finds himself Snetterton race 2 once again with the exact same view, but Benjamin Heilmann keeps it under control, and it looks like Andy Boardman runs himself a little bit too deep through Murray's indeed, and a bit greedy on the exit curb. Could this give Benjamin Heilmann the run he needs? But the grunt of the Mustang just keeping Andy Boardman with the overlap. What is a kilometre? I can hear screeching eagles as we go down into turn 1. And
someone
Andy
play
Boardman
Freebird.
Someone play Freebird, please. But Andy Boardman very much keeping it alive, getting the nose ahead once again of Benjamin Harmon. And I know Benjamin Harmon is going to be so frustrated at the power advantage that that Mustang has, and certainly been very gifted on the side of the BOP, shall we say, as we cast our eye back to the Philip Bridgester fight with, of course, Christopher Streppen just ahead, the BMW trying to size up Shipston, I think that is, and Grim Lilith. This could still be on the cards, Callum.
Never
in doubt. Prediction, I mean, 2 more positions, or 1 more position actually, because you said Grim Lilith, didn't you? And no further than Grim, but of course, Tom Shipston being ever so close, that's going to be a big ask. He's going to have to separate Shipston as Shipston goes up the inside. He's going to have the inside run for Hamilton. That, of course, will become the outside for Oggy. So Shipston's going to have to get it done in this corner. Grim gets the much better run through the outside. Philip Bridgester tries to split the 2, and Tom Shipston has to go the long way around. But, of course, Christopher Streppen there up the inside into Williams. He's got the overlap, and that sees the Aston Martin promoted up. And technically, if this race finished right now, your prediction, Callum, would be correct.
I never doubted myself once about that, John. I just saw the future just as you did at the start of the race. Of course, it looks like he's making the move into Brundle. He thinks better of it, or just backs out. Grim with a great defense with the 0 TC rally cars. We go on border with a race replay, and this was so close. Grim just leaving the room. Very respectful amount of room there, but great fighting, a brilliant racing from everyone. These guys have been absolutely chewing through this field, John. It's been amazing to see that 3-way fight between Verstappen, Bridgester and Shipston was an absolute joy to watch, as I think they may have a run here into turn 1 on Grim Lilith as we ride back up over the leaders, and they do. It's 3 wide going into turn 1 as Bridgester's got the run through turn 1 into T2 on Grim Lilith. There was a touch from Verstappen there, and another touch. What is going on here, John? There's been absolute carnage going into T2. Everyone just not quite hitting their brake markers, but it looks like as the dust settles, it's going to be Bridgester ahead. Is Verstappen going to get past Grim? He does. Grim running a touch wide. Is Shipston going to capitalise on this? As they go into Agostini, Les Stevenson, collection there of Tom Shipston. I don't know what is going on, John. Can you unpack this as it's still going on? And Grim Lilith holds on to this position as he goes off-road in true rally fashion. He is doing a stellar job of promoting this new rally series. Every single race with this sideways action off the track. But he holds on, still ahead of Shipston, but Bridgester and Verstappen have finally got through. Stewards, over to you for that one.
Yeah, that's going to be a steward's decision if ever I say so. I don't want to unpack that one myself, but what absolute chaos we had down into the Montreal hairpin, and Andy Boardman runs wide coming out of the last turn. Benjamin Harmon could have the overlap here. It's going to be a run to the line. Boardman to the left, Harmon to the right. The Mustang grunt just about keeps it in. The number 69 Greased Weasel Racing will come across the line to take the checkered flag. Benjamin Harmon, unfortunately, in second position. 0.098 separated those two as they came across the finish line. Emo Plate comes through to take the bottom step of the podium in the number 71. A much better race for Marco Badowski in the number 29. Martin Lawrence in P5. We then have a photo finish of Richard Phillips and Matt Stevens. Philip Bridgester managed to jump Grim Lilith, so you're very close on your prediction, Callum, but not quite right. Christopher Streppen just behind, of course, following where his teammate went. Tom Shipston, P10, Grim Lilith, P11, Ted Edwards just doing Mustang things on that one towards the end of the race. And of course, Cars and Coffee exit kind of cosplaying there maybe for Ted Edwards, as we of course see lots of other drivers finishing the race. Of course, Martin Foster, P19. We've got a few penalties to sift through. Again, they'll be drawn out when the checkered flag drops, mainly between Foster, Racer, and Dow. Of course, Reiher down in P24, 10 seconds to his name as well. Keith Whittle, P21. We've still got Trevor Byford. He'll be your last car to cross the line. I think Reiher just finishing underneath our feet now, just 2 laps down on that one. And Trevor Byford for Randy Pleasemore Soup will be your last car to cross the line in the number 505. But man, Callum, we thought that would be the cleaner race, I say with, you know, air quotation marks there, but it really wasn't. It completely kicked off from the beginning. We had a bit of a lull in the middle, and then towards the end, absolute chaos ensued down into the Montreal hairpin once again. Final race results, of course, on your screen. Of course, penalties shuffled around the top 20 area, so have a look down that end. But Callum, that was chaos on that one. That was brilliant stuff to watch from up here in the booth, though.
Chaos, glorious, glorious chaos, but also some incredible racing up and down the field. Harman and Boardman delivering once again. Harman, I don't think he ever wants to see the Mustang after this championship, as once again, clearly with a bit more pace on Boardman, but just cannot get past that Mustang on these tight and twisty tracks that we have here in the UK. But we say it time and time again, it's one thing to catch and another thing to pass. And Andy Boorman, once again, a stellar job holding his position firm and taking another win. For me, if I had to go for a driver of the day, I'm going with Emil Blatter. I haven't seen him that far up the field in a very, very long time, and he had an incredible drive to hold off that pressure, take the lead for the Lambos, and a well-deserved podium this race.
Yeah, I got to say, I think I agree with you there. I mean, race one, of course, in P4, race two, netting himself on the bottom step of the podium. So, yeah, certainly a driver of the day, quite high up in my regards, I'd say so myself as well. So, very well pointed out there. Of course, it's been absolutely action-packed tonight from race one and race two, but race two, typically the one where it all kicked off. If race one was calm, race two was bound to be that little bit more chaotic. But yeah, definitely a broadcast worthy of watching back if you are just joining us there, as highlights, of course, appear on your screen. Of course, we touched on that earlier. The sign-ups have opened for the Nürburgring Nordschleife 6 Hours Part 2. It's going to be GT3, GT4 and TCX taking to the circuit for 6 hours of multi-class madness. That's on August 3rd. Sign-ups are open on the website for that one. Of course, this week, Saturday Night Out heads to round 5 down under at Mount Panorama. So if you do want to get involved in that one, then be sure to do so. Of course, if you are staying this late in the broadcast, some eagle-eyed community members may have seen an announcement from a certain Ryan Gill this week. There's something big making a return for 2024 here at RCI. So keep your eyes peeled on Saturday, the 27th of July, around 8 p.m. Central European Summertime, to see what that might be. And of course, you can see the announcements channel if you are curious as to what I'm talking about. Head on over, have a look, and see if you can speculate and guess what might be coming to RCI. Of course, you can head on over to the website, sign up for the events at any time, day or night. That's racerci.com. And you can, of course, check out all of our RCI links down below, including Discord, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, where you can find out all the exciting stuff that goes on behind the scenes in RCI, such as our esports teams following. Of course, we hit 4,500 subs on YouTube this year. A big thank you to everybody involved in making that happen. Not only, of course, you guys at home, but everybody behind the scenes at RCI that we don't always hear or see from, because there's quite a few of us here running the show. And of course, a big thank you to all of our partners, including AK Esports, Go Setups, and of course, 2 new partners for this year, Motor Racing and Motorsport UK Esports. No driver interviews tonight, so it is going to be a very speedy wrap-up for us here on YouTube, and we thank each and every single one of you for joining us in tonight's broadcast. So, from myself, John Dalton, from Callum Kerrigan alongside me, and of course Jesse Lee behind the cameras, and of course not forgetting all of our live stewards up in race control. We thank each and every one of you for joining us. We hope you have a wonderful rest of the week, and we hope to see you another time here at RCI TV. Take care.